Hannah Murray on TRE in the afternoon.
Joining us on the line now is Sophie Lucido Johnson. She's a writer and an award-winning cartoonist for The New Yorker. Her new book, Kin, speaks directly to anyone seeking deeper human connection in their everyday lives. In the book, she talks about how people are inventing new ways to create communities of care, from living with roommates later in life to co-parenting with friends, to simply asking for help with errands without feeling guilty. Through these examples and her own experiences, Sophie offers accessible, actionable steps for readers to cultivate their own kinship networks and break from seclusion. Welcome to the show, Sophie.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for joining us. And what a lovely idea for a book. Where did it all come from?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's been stirring for over a decade for me, but really, of course, it was the pandemic and that sort of increased isolation that we all experienced that made me think we needed a guidebook for finding each other again.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think people really realized how important their community was during the pandemic when they weren't allowed to have one, basically.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was the difference between having a terrible time and being remotely sane, the people who you were spending your time with when you were totally walled off.
Yeah. So where did you start with this book then?
So I was living with roommates. I have a husband and I was living with roommates, and my roommate wanted to get pregnant and I wanted to get pregnant. And so we're all living in one house, and we both kind of got pregnant at the same time and found that pregnancy and then later having children was a lot easier in community than it would have been in a single family home. So that made me think that what are some of the lessons I'm learning here that could be applied to other people, could help other people have more ease in their lives? Are there simple adjustments that we could make so that we were in greater community with one another? And I wanted to research how other cultures have done this, how groups of people have done it through time. I wanted to learn about the effects of loneliness and how also living in community can ultimately help us combat climate disaster by sharing resources.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine there'd be many people in the Western world that would have done what you've done, living in a community and getting pregnant at the same time. It's normally something that people would want to do or just in a normal situation do in a family home without anyone else involved.
Right. I mean, I'm proposing that we redefine the word family to include more than just one partner and our kids, but to also hold within it some chosen family, some people who are really close to us that aren't necessarily related by blood. And so that's sort of the impetus, is expanding that definition of family to hold a few more people.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there's that saying, friends are the family we choose, isn't there?
That's it. Exactly.
And a lot of people, are lucky enough to have really good friends, and they can be much closer to their friends than their family. Or it could be that their family, they don't have any family. They're not close to their family, or they've passed on, and their friends literally are their family.
Absolutely. There are all kinds of stories about families of origin where people feel cast out or rejected. I did a lot of research on the history of queer family, because historically families of origin have kicked out queer folks. And so there's been a long history of building family across beyond bloodlines. And in fact, that's true for all primates, not just humans. And it's been true throughout history. It's really post-industrial revolution that we've moved into these more isolated single family, mom, dad, two kid models of togetherness. And it's just not enough to take care of all that you need to take care of in a life.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting that when you talk about for people, the importance of people asking for help with errands without feeling guilty. I think a lot of people can relate to that. You know, if you're going through something, whether it's an illness or a bereavement or whatever it might be, and friends will say, "Oh, you know, I'm here for you. Let me know if you need anything," which is obviously a really lovely thing to say. But to then pick up the phone and say, "Can you please go and get me some shopping," or whatever it might be, you think, I can't ask them to do that. You know, they've got their own lives. They've got children to look after. They've also got elderly parents. And you feel like people are just saying those words. "Oh, I'll help you out if you need it," but don't necessarily mean it. To actually reach out and ask is really difficult.
I mean, you got it. That is the culture it's the culture of politeness, which is really great. It's nice that we care about each other and, but it's not serving us. So yes, this sort of back and forth of let me know if there's anything I can do to help. Oh, I'll let you know if I think of anything. Then you never do. And then, you know, some time goes on and the roles reverse without anyone really helping each other. And it's really tricky because when you do ask, because we ask so infrequently, it doesn't feel safe to say no. So if someone asks you for help and you are overtaxed, you feel like you have to say yes because it's so rare for them to ask. So we're not really living in a world where asking for help or receiving help is honest. It's sort of like emergencies only is when we access these questions in their truest form. And we need help a lot. And also we need to be able to say no a lot. So, you know, the book has a couple of exercises you can do. Ultimately, it comes down to identifying which people you want to have helping relationships with. You might notice that with your partner, you feel more comfortable asking for help. Can you hang that shelf? I need a ride home from work tomorrow. My car's in the shop. Like that's something you ask your partner. So how do you get there with your partner, but we're not getting there with our friends? How do you sort of build a couple more relationships so the help can get spread out? And it's definitely possible, but it's hard. I'm of a polite household where if you say, you have to say, let me help you with the dishes. And then you're not allowed to actually help with the dishes. You've asked like 5 times to help with the dishes. I want to help you with the dishes. Oh, no. Just sit there. You're our guest. No, really, let me help. Oh, no, no. I have a special way that I do it. No, I'm going to come help. I mean, that was my upbringing. I'm sure it will sound familiar to some.
Definitely. And also, I think when somebody is going through something and you want to help, sometimes, I mean, you need to know the person. Obviously, everybody's different and isn't going to necessarily react the same way. But if someone's going through some health issues, maybe, and they're not able to cook for themselves as easily, then to just turn up with some food is really nice. To just say, listen, I made a lasagna. I made way too much. Here's leftover. You know, you don't have to say, I've made this especially for you to make them feel guilty. Right. You can say, listen, this was in the fridge. I wanted to share it with you guys. As opposed to saying, let me know if you need food, because for people to say, can you please cook me food it seems like quite a big ask. So just take it to them. Just
I mean, absolutely. Yes. I mean, sorry to talk over you, but not only when people are sick, like you can do that just because you can say, I have a lasagna. I'm in your neighborhood. I'm dropping it off. Okay, bye. That's how you start to build the trust, is by showing up in moments where there's not an emergency or things aren't hard, so that, you know, you start to get used to those patterns. But it's such a good example.
Yeah, definitely. And what other advice do you give in the book for people who are maybe experiencing loneliness, live on their own, and do need help with things to kind of reach out and build some kind of community?
Thanks for asking. A lot of my research led to conclusions that proximity is pretty important. And so, you know, we're often far away from people we love a lot. And there's a lot of ways to build connection across distance, but start where you are. If you're feeling lonely, if you're living in Even if you're living in an apartment complex or a building where you're not traditionally housed with neighbors, like who are you physically closest to, and drop off a box of chocolates or drop off a note that introduces yourself, or stop someone on the street to pet their dog. I think one of the most important things you can do is learn people's names who you see around all the time. Just learn their names. Makes a big difference when you feel like someone has taken the time to learn your name. So if you're feeling really lonely and you don't know where to start in your neighborhood and try saying hi to a couple of people. I know that's really tricky. I understand that is scary and tricky. And also, it's safe. You can do it. You can try it.
Yeah. And people are probably going to be grateful. People are probably going to respond in a really positive way by saying, "Oh, so nice to meet you. Thanks for introducing yourself. We live up there and we've been here 20 years and, getting into a conversation with your neighbors, because I think it's so sad, depending on the kind of places that people live in. I think we're used to seeing on television and in films, these people having these great neighborhood friendships and they all go over to each other's houses all the time. And, they're all great friends. And the reality is in a lot of areas, most people don't know their neighbors at all, don't know their neighbors' names. They barely say hello. And they certainly wouldn't think about being friends with their neighbors. And we might be living near people who we really like and could be great friends and could be really supportive people. There's no harm in reaching out. If you don't like the person, you don't need to talk to them again.
I mean, yes, there is so much research on that. It is sort of a growing truth that we don't even know our neighbors. There's this landmark study from 2000 by Robert Putnam called Bowling Alone that's been updated a few times about neighborhoods and how they have disintegrated over time. We continue to be more and more isolated. Technology has allowed us to be more and more isolated. I had an experience the other day where I could not find my bundt pan, and I needed it because we were having a bake-off party and I had to make some pull-apart bread. And I didn't have my bundt pan. And my first thought was I could order one off of Amazon and it would be here in 24 hours and then I'd have it. And then I thought, well, okay, but I bet there's someone on my street who has one. And of course there was. And then I got to have a nice conversation with Michelle and, hear how her kid was doing, which was really great. And you get something extra. Also, no packaging from my Amazon box. I don't have to store an extra bundt pan. I'm sure mine is somewhere. It's just so many benefits from being able to just these simple things. It's just the small things that add up. It seems so obvious, but it also is so easy to get stuff, right now that we don't always think about how we can share and build relationships around our stuff.
Definitely. It makes a big difference. And then you're in dialogue with Michelle and when you take the pan back to her, you can take it with a box of chocolates or a bottle of wine or, and then you've got this relationship going that might not have happened before.
Exactly. Yeah. And to the point of people you don't like, when we first moved, I live in Chicago. When we first moved to Chicago, we lived next to some people who we were really politically different from, but we also had some common ground. You have common ground with your neighbors, which is you're invested in the place where you live. You want it to be safe and you want it to be nice. Like you're choosing to live there. And so actually it was really great to know these neighbors who, there was some common ground we never found, but then there were things that we all do have commonalities as we're just all humans who are trying to live. There's few exceptions to that. There might be some robots out there. I don't know, but mostly we're all humans just trying to take care of each other. And we can expand that a bit. Those two people who they were 30 years older than us, totally different political views, ended up coming to our wedding when we got married. And it was great to have them. There's common ground even now, even in these divisive times, there's land between us that we can share.
Absolutely. And I like the age difference thing because, you know, we have that a lot. I have to say, living in Spain as expats, it's much more normal to be friends with people who are completely different age group to you. I often see my friends in the UK, their friends are all people their own age and their kids are the same age. And I like that. I think that's really nice. And that does give you a sense of community, but it's a different type of community here. We're all people who have chosen to live abroad. And, you know, some of my best friends are 40 years older than me or 10 years younger than me. And that's totally fine and normal. You know, if you enjoy each other's company and you enjoy the same things, going to a nice restaurant or going to the theatre or whatever it might be, the fact that you're from a different generation makes absolutely no difference whatsoever. And I love that.
I mean, yeah, I love that. That's incredible. Cross-generational friendships is another thing I researched for this book and wrote a little bit about in this book. And if cross-generational friendships are beneficial for every person involved, and that has been shown in so many research studies. So creating relationships with people who are much older or much younger than you, people who don't have children should build relationships with their friends' children. That's really good for both the children and for the people without children. And likewise, you know, help getting involved with people who are nearing the end of life. Those are people we sometimes shut out because I think it's scary for us to face. But those are folks who often are feeling really isolated and are very grateful for friendship. And then they have all this wisdom and, you know, there's so much you gain from having relationships with people who are different ages. It's good for everybody. And we really don't do it enough. You know, in Western cultures, we really do stick to our own groups, and we're missing out on a lot of good stuff when we do that.
Definitely. Yeah. And there's wisdom and knowledge, not just in older people, but in younger people. You know, both older people and younger people in society are very often dismissed. And I think older people can learn a lot from younger people and vice versa. You know, there can be some lovely friendships struck with different generations.
Absolutely. And this is like one of my central tenets is really about, finding for people who are in sort of these core adulthood years to commit to spending time with babies, children, teenagers, young adults, for not just because you're not going to want to do it, especially with children, because it's like children are a lot of work, but there's research that shows that just getting outside of yourself for a short period of time is really good for your mental health. And it's like brushing your teeth or eating broccoli. Like maybe you don't want to do it, but it's really good for you. And so, you know, knowing that, and then also knowing that if you have friends who have kids, it's really, really helpful to them for you to spend an hour with their kid. They are exhausted. They don't want to be around their kid all the time. I promise. It's exhausting. So, you know, that is a way that you can both help your friends, but also help yourself. I teach freshmen in college, and my relationships with kids around that age, 18, 19, I don't know, they're incredibly valuable, so valuable. And they're so hungry for mentorship and for relationship with people who have had experiences that they want to have. I mean, we're all longing for it. You have to trust people are longing for it and that they want it from you, because it's true. We all want to be closer to people.
Yeah. Well, if people want to get a copy of the book, it's called Kin, The Future of Family. It's available on our website, TRE.radio, and it's by Sophie Lucido Johnson, who we've been chatting with. Sophie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. I had a great time.